Well, I'm sure that you heard that Trump is going to be our president again. But have you heard all of the crazy shit he keeps talking about doing? In this video, we're going to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly that is to come during this Trump presidency. I'm Benji, and on this channel, we learn English through interesting topics. Let's get into the video. Number 1. A war on all fronts. Trump has recently mentioned that he wants to send the military to the Panama Canal, send the military to Mexico, to Greenland, and he even would like to make Canada the 51st state. I know, it's crazy. It's all very crazy. But personally, I think that Trump is just talking. Trump wants Panama, for example, to think that he is going to invade their country like the United States has already done. And they're scared. They want a way out. And then Trump will say, just give us a 20% discount on all American goods coming through the canal. That's my opinion. I think Trump is just trying to talk to start negotiations. Although it's terrible and it's very sad and I don't like it. But I do think he is just talking. Things that I do not think are lies, though, are the largest deportation of undocumented migrants. Trump has said during these next 4 years, there will be the biggest deportation of illegal immigrants that our country has ever seen. If you don't know, the United States has had a ton of issues with illegal immigration recently. For example, just in December of 2024, there were over 300,000 migrants that crossed the border. This has caused a lot of concern for Americans because they don't feel as safe as they used to. I mean, a quick example. Just a few days before this last Christmas, an illegal immigrant from Guatemala set a woman on fire in the metro in New York City. Stories like these have made Americans in our cities feel even less secure than they already did in our already devastated cities. So what's Trump's idea? Trump will round up the illegal immigrants and send them back to wherever they came from. Will it work? It probably will not be that easy. However, he can and will put a lot more security on our border, which will help less illegal immigrants make it into the US. Number 3, moves on the economy and tariffs. Trump has talked about imposing 10 to 20% tariffs on all goods that come into the United States. And he's even mentioned 60% tariffs on all goods from China. Again, many are saying that this is just Trump's way of starting negotiations. However, it's not just scaring other countries. We are very scared too. I mean, most of our goods come from China. If I picked up 5 things off my desk, probably 4 of them are from China. So while Americans are already struggling financially, this, if completed, would make our financial lives even harder. Now, to try and understand Trump's point of view, he did come from a United States that's very different from the one we know today. I mean, just in the 1970s, about 90% of cars on the road were American made. However, today, that's about 40%, and it's lowering with the passing of each decade. Of course, the problem with Trump trying to force American companies to regain their market share in the US is that it's going to cause people who already have a hard time buying cars to have an even more difficult time. I mean, the US produces less cars now for a reason. They can't do it as good for as cheap as Japan and China, for example. But Trump doesn't care. Trump wants us in Fords and Chevys. So we'll see how that works out. Number 4, kill the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal was passed by the Biden administration. Now, this law essentially tells companies that they need to produce more electric vehicles and switch to renewable energy sources in their factories. Unfortunately, Ford is failing terribly at making electric cars, probably because the type of person who wants a Ford doesn't want an electric vehicle. They want a truck. So Trump plans on throwing away that bill and allowing companies like Ford to make the cars that make them money, while also allowing them the freedom to choose what energy sources they use to power their factories. Some people think this will be amazing for the American economy, while others are afraid of the potential impact that it will have on the environment. And one last thing, instead of all these renewable energy sources, Trump would like to, quote,
drill, baby, drill.
Number 5, ending the Ukraine war in 24 hours. This might be Trump's most famous promise yet. While he hasn't said exactly what the negotiation will look like, I think you and I can both agree that we want people to stop dying for this war, and we want things to be resolved peacefully. I mean, my favorite clip of Trump is this one right here, where he says,
"Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?"
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying. Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying. And I'll have
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, whether you hate or love Trump, you have to agree it's better that more people don't die for this war. Number 6, regaining freedom of speech in the US. Over the last 4 years, the topic of freedom of speech has gotten really hot. The Biden administration has reached out to private companies like Meta, telling them that they need to ban people for saying things that they don't like. Trump said that he will launch an investigation into all the government agencies that might have been using their power to censor speech, and he will have all of the people involved fired from their jobs. Many people here are happy at the idea of regaining freedom of speech, while others are scared that it will lead to the spread of misinformation and hate speech. And number 7, the biggest tax cuts for workers. Now, this is one thing that Trump mentioned that all Americans are very excited about. He wants to pass a bill that makes it so we no longer pay tax on overtime or tips. If you don't know, overtime is any hour worked after 40 hours in a week. So in the United States, a full work week is 40 hours. However, many people are forced by their companies to work more than that. For example, I was forced to work between 50 and 60 hours a week by my last company. So 10 to 20 hours a week were overtime. Overtime in the United States is paid 1.5 times your wage. So if you make $20 an hour, with overtime hours, you'll be making 30. The problem is, if you make 20 an hour, you get taxed differently than someone who makes 30 an hour. So you see the problem. The people who work more hours and work harder, they are getting taxed more because they're working more. Trump wants to eliminate that and make overtime hours tax-free. And for tips, he also wants to make it so there's no tax paid on tips. And well, those are really the most important things that Trump has mentioned that he wants to do in these next 4 years. What do you think about Trump's ideas? Do you like some? Do you hate some? Let me know in the comments, but please be respectful about it. Thank you. Now, if you'd like to learn the vocabulary mentioned in this video that's a bit more advanced, down below I'll leave you a free Quizlet flashcard deck that I made just for you. Thanks so much for coming back to study English with me. I hope you have a wonderful week. Goodbye.